Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here. My name's Brian, and today I've got a disparate group of titles. Some Warner Archive, some 4Ks, a TV show, some Sony releases. It's a mix here. So let's get into this with my favorite of the bunch, Westward, The Women. This is a big discovery for me. Came out in 1951, directed by William A. Wellman, who is a director I am definitely a fan of. He did things on the high-profile side, like Public Enemy with Jimmy Cagney. He did the movie Wings. The Oxbow Incident, I'm a big fan of that. But he also did a bunch of pre-code movies that are really great, like Night Nurse, Safe in Hell, Wild Boys of the Road. I'm a big fan of that one. Heroes for Sale. He's just a really solid. The Purchase Price, I'm just noticing some other, but there's a ton of stuff here. He did stuff with John Wayne. I mean, he's all over the place. And this is based on a story by Frank Capra, if I didn't already mention that. And it is the tale of a Western wagon train. And we've seen those before. But the spin on this one is that it is basically an all-women wagon train. And the idea is that John McIntyre, who I always point out as the old spy in the couple of spies in Cloak and Dagger, who's in a ton of older films. I've mentioned him on the channel before. But he is a big ranch owner, and he's got a bunch of cowboys working for him on his ranch. And his solution to help them is they are getting lonely. They would like wives, but there are not a ton of ladies out in California in 1851. Is that he's going to bring over 100 basically mail order brides from Chicago to California. And it's going to be this sort of long, arduous journey with the women. So he hires a cynical, wagon master type played by Robert Taylor, called Buck Wyatt. So he hires him to be their guide across the, very difficult frontier. But it's complicated, and their initial grab of 100 women actually ends up being more like 140 because they know, and they tell them as much, that not all the women are going to make it there. And you hear that at the beginning of the movie and you kind of go, oh yeah, okay, sure, whatever. But it's a pretty emotional and epic and just impactful journey that they have. In some ways, I was reminded of something like Caged, which is a totally different kind of movie, a women in prison film. And this movie is not nearly bleak on the level that film is. That movie is dark stuff and really powerful. But I guess I thought this would be a lighter film. I had heard from friends for years that this was a really solid Western. And I think I built up an idea in my head like, oh, it'll be kind of goofy, for the time, maybe showing how women might have trouble with this stuff and how that might be played for humor, which I wasn't really looking forward to, honestly. And that's part of the reason I had pushed it off. But it's not that movie. In fact, these women are incredible and strong and really tough. Some of the major players, I mean, it's a lot of actors I don't necessarily know. Denise Darcel plays a French woman named Danon. Hope Emerson is a big part of this one. She plays Patience, and Hope Emerson is actually in Caged. She's one of the female guards in Caged. And when you see her, she's a large woman. You can kind of see how she would be a guard type in that context. But she's a really wonderful character in this that's just sort of like real tough as nails type that knows how to handle horses. Several of the women know how to shoot. And they end up sort of having to teach each other how to handle themselves in this very wild and difficult journey that they have. But like I said, Robert Taylor sets out at the beginning. He's got 15 men to help them, and one of the rules he says is that, stay away from the women. These are not women that are meant for you. They are meant to be taken to the ranch, and I don't want you to mess with them, and it will mess up the whole wagon train if you do. Just the drama that ensues because of those relationships. He says, I've seen it before, and he's got a real hardline stance to the point where like he'll shoot people if they start trying to mess with the women. And so that makes it difficult because they start losing men, and there's a really great character called Ito, played by Henry Nakamura, and he's sort of like one of the last cowboys that gets hired, and he's smaller, but he's very determined and tough also, and he becomes sort of a right-hand man to Robert Taylor. He calls him Big Boss or something like that, and he often will say some phrase in his own language, and then Robert Taylor will always be like, what'd you say? And then he'll give him some little bit of advice or bit of wisdom that he had said under his breath. And it's an ongoing thing. And I love their relationship and his thing in general. There's a dog in this movie too that's really sweet. It's not a giant part for the dog, but there is a couple scenes that are really moving with the dog. So I'm a sucker for that. But overall, I just was incredibly moved by the film. Like, I didn't expect it to be so moving. And so it really is a discovery for me. And it's a beautiful black and white 1:3:3 transfer, and it looks great in this new Blu-ray. And like I said, the cast of women, a lot of whom I don't know, is very strong, and Robert Taylor and John McIntyre help the picture definitely, but it's really carried by the cast of women that are involved, and it's a special movie. Like, I'm glad I finally got to see it. I'm glad I waited for the Blu-ray, but I should have seen it before, is the point. And so this one actually has some nice features. It has an audio commentary by Scott Amon, which I was starting to listen to and very much digging. I'm definitely going to finish that. So a rare one with a commentary. It also has vintage MGM featurette Challenge of the Wilderness, a Lux Radio Theater broadcast from December 29th, 1952 with Robert Taylor of this film. So he's in the cast. MGM cartoons, Texas Tom, and the Duck Doctor, and the original trailer. So that's a nice package. And like I said, along with Wichita, which I mentioned recently as a Warner Archive movie that I really dug, this is another Western Warner Archive movie that very much up my alley. So that's Westward, The Women. Next up, we have an animated film, which I tend to get every round I talk about Warner Archive titles, and this one is Cats Don't Dance from 1997, and it is a neat movie in that it, I want to say, precedes Toy Story. I don't think Toy Story was till 99. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it has songs by the great... I'll tell you in just a second here. Randy Newman is who I was trying to think of. So that's one thing. But let me just read the back here and tell you. Talent, ambition, and drive count for everything in Hollywood unless you're a cool cat with dreams of dancing. Because everyone knows that pigs don't fly, cows don't sing, and definitely cats don't dance. Scott Bakula and Jasmine Guy lend their impressive talents to star in this musical animated rags to riches feature as the voices of Danny, a way cool hep cat with toes that yearn to tap, and Sawyer, the sexy, cynical chanteuse whom Danny swoons. But twirl, tap, and leap as he might in dances choreographed by legendary human dancer Gene Kelly, so that's kind of cool, Danny can't even get an audition. People always get the good parts. Animals only bark, moo, or meow. With songs by Randy Newman and vocals sung by the great Natalie Cole, Danny and the animals struggle through harrowing and hilarious escapades, each doing what they do regardless of species. And in the end, Danny and Sawyer, realizing they are a match made in cat heaven, follow their dreams, shuffle off past everyone who says that cats don't dance. So this one I feel like is a little underseen. I know I hadn't seen it in 97. I was a little old for this kind of movie then, but the animation looks really nice, and it's just one of those movies that, you know, it has a good cast outside of Scott Bakula and Jasmine Guy. You have Frank Welker, who did voices for Scooby-Doo, Don Knotts, George Kennedy, John Rhys Davies, Renee Auberjonois, Hal Holbrook, Betty Lou Gerson, David Johansen, and other folks. So it's a really solid cast, and I just love these sort of underseen animated films getting releases. Last time it was Gay Paris, so 2 cat-related animated films getting releases from Warner Archive, and this one again from '97, but I think really underseen and underappreciated. So really nice to see this get a new transfer, and it looks nice, as it always does with Warner Archive and their elements in their animation films. So that is Cats Don't Dance, and this includes Warner Brothers cartoons, Daffy Duck and Hollywood, What's Up Doc, Showbiz Bugs, Curtain Raiser, and the original theatrical trailer. So we get some extra cartoons with this one. No commentary or anything, but still a nice package for Cats Don't Dance, if you're a fan of animated movies from that period. Next up, a little change of gears here. We have Cocaine Bear. Now, Cocaine Bear, this is on 4K UHD. It had been released on Blu-ray prior to this, but now we have it on 4K, and all the stuff from the Blu-ray gets ported to this 4K. So you get a Blu-ray and a 4K and a digital code, but in this case, all the extras are also on the 4K itself. And the movie opens with Jane, the song Jane by Jefferson Starship, or Starship, I can't remember. And it's the same song that they used to open Wet Hot American Summer, which it's used better in Wet Hot American Summer. There's a crazy slow motion dance around a campfire that's happening in that movie. But I love that song, so immediately I'm like, oh, cool. And the film is interesting. It's sort of about an oddball group of cops, criminals, tourists, and young teens that end up sort of coming together in a Georgia forest where a 500-pound black bear is going on a murderous rampage after unintentionally ingesting cocaine. And the movie opens with a criminal type throwing duffel bags of cocaine out of the plane. And then as he goes to jump out, hits his head on the roof of the door and falls out of the plane and dies because his chute doesn't open. He's got a parachute on. And that begins the mystery of the cocaine itself and people starting to show up in this wilderness. There's a whole other plot with Carrie Russell and a couple of her kids. Her kid and another friend of hers going into the woods to paint a waterfall, and Alden Ehrenreich and Ray Liotta. Ray Liotta's like a drug kingpin sort of type, and Alden Ehrenreich is his son, and who's estranged and is depressed due to some personal stuff I won't go into. And Ray Liotta is constantly watching his grandson, the Alden Ehrenreich's kid. And that's kind of a weird, funny joke that he doesn't really like watching his own grandson. And it's a long-haired Ray Liotta, late in his career, one of his last films. Also, Shea Jackson Jr., Ice Cube's son, really great actor, is in this as well, as friends with Alden Ehrenreich, and he gets caught up in this whole thing, as does Margot Martindale, who is a forest ranger. And it also stars Brooklyn Prince, who fans of Sean Baker movies will remember as the little girl from the Florida Project. She plays the daughter of Carrie Russell in this, and she's a little older now because that film was 5 years ago or so. Anyway, it's a little uneven, if I'm being honest. It almost feels like a movie that was meant to be a horror movie and that they tried to impose comedic stuff onto, because it opens with some intense scenes of the bear coming after people, and then it does. I get that they're trying to make it pretty ridiculous in terms of the kills, because people just get torn apart and it's gory and it's ridiculous, and there is a lot of people cracking wise throughout it, and it's a fascinating movie on that level. And like I said, there's more in the cast that you'll recognize. There's a cop played by Isaiah Whitlock Jr., who is from The Wire and a whole bunch of other stuff. You definitely remember him. It's a fun movie, but like I said, it doesn't necessarily fully come together for me, but it's still, I get the phenomenon of it. I understand why it was such a big deal at the time. And it's got a bunch of special features. Well, not a bunch, but several, which I'll go through here. There is an audio commentary by director-producer Elizabeth Banks, who, of course, is part of the Pitch Perfect franchise. She's a director and star of those, some of them, and a great actor, but has become a great filmmaker in her own right. So it's her and her producer, Max Handelman. Then we have All the Roads Lead to Cokie, The Making of Cocaine Bear, which is a 9-minute, 15-second featurette about the making of. They talk to the cast and crew and stuff. Same thing with all of these. Unbearable Bloodbath, Dissecting the Kills, 8 minutes, 15 seconds, looking at specifically the gory kills in the movie. And then we have Doing Lines, a 4-minute featurette, a gag reel, about 2 minutes. That's pretty funny. Deleted and extended scenes for 4.5 minutes, and an alternate ending as well for about a minute, 48 seconds or so. So again, this includes a digital copy, Blu-ray, and 4K UHD. Looks very nice in 4K, I will say. So that is Cocaine Bear. Then we have Kiss the Girls. Now this is a standalone 4K, no Blu-ray included, and it does not have any features at all. It's basically bare bones, but it is a 4K for this movie. I can't remember if this got a special edition release on Blu-ray that had, or DVD previous to this that had some features, but this film is from 1997. It is directed by Gary Fleeter, who had broken out a little bit with Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead in 95. But the film itself is certainly a response to the rise in popularity of serial killer movies in the 1990s, starting with Silence of the Lambs, leading to Seven specifically, because you have Morgan Freeman starring in that one, and he stars in this one as forensic psychologist Alex Cross. And this is based on the novel by James Patterson, who had a little run of films based on his novels. This is the first of a few Alex Cross movies. Another one to follow would be Along Came a Spider in 2001, and then there's another one just called Alex Cross, I think, as well. This stars, of course, Morgan Freeman, as I said, as Alex Cross, plus Ashley Judd, as well as Carrie Elwes, J.O. Sanders, Bill Nunn from Do the Right Thing, Brian Cox, an interesting Manhunter / Hannibal Lecter connection as like a chief detective. Basically, Alex Cross travels to North Carolina and ends up teaming with the escaped kidnap victim Kate McTiernan, that is Ashley Judd, to hunt down Casanova, a serial killer who abducts strong-willed women and forces them to submit to his demands, and then eventually sometimes leads them into the wilderness, ties them up, and lets them be killed by animals. It's got a twist in that at the beginning, Morgan Freeman's niece is actually one of the girls that's missing. So the trail leads to LA, and there's some complications I won't go into, but Billy Blanks is in this too. I forgot about that. Jeremy Piven as well. But yeah, it's a solid thriller from 97. If you're into these serial killer movies, it's not bad. The 4K looks nice. It comes with a digital code. I like Morgan Freeman in this kind of role. I think he really excels and does a nice job. So, and I like Ashley Judd, so I end up enjoying the movie. But the supporting cast helps a lot. The darkness of the film and Gary Fleeter's direction is, solid as well. I forgot that this was his sort of big studio movie after Things to Do in Denver. But anyway, that is Kiss the Girls on 4K. Next up, we have a TV show. We have Poker Face. And this is a 2023 TV show. It was a I think, a decent-sized hit for Peacock. It's a Peacock original, developed by and created by Rian Johnson, filmmaker behind Brick, and of course the Knives Out movies and more. And he was very much inspired by Columbo, the Peter Falk show, to make his own show. He also was inspired by the Russian doll show on Netflix with Natasha Lyonne, and he's a huge fan of Natasha Lyonne. He became a big fan of hers based on that show and wanted to make a show for her. So he wrote this show with her in mind, and she plays Charlie, who is this sort of drifter type who has an extraordinary ability to determine when someone is lying. And she, in some opening, I think definitely the opening and maybe one or two of the closing episodes are both written and directed by Rian Johnson. But she gets herself in a little bit of trouble at the beginning of the series and has to go on the run in her Plymouth Barracuda. And, kind of like the Hulk or something like that, she stops along the way as she's on the run and runs into a new group of characters and a new murder. So it's a murder of the week kind of show, but it is fascinating that her character has this quasi superpower. Like I don't even think she has to see them. I think she can just hear someone say something and she can immediately tell 100% if they're lying. It's not a, partial thing. She nails it every time. So she is fantastic in this role, and I really, really enjoyed this show a lot watching it on Hulu. This Blu-ray includes all of the first season episodes, and unfortunately no commentary from Rian Johnson. I would love to hear just an interview or a commentary from him on one of these, the pilot maybe, but I get that that's difficult and more expensive to produce. But I'm glad that this Blu-ray is available in case people don't have Peacock, as that was the only place you could see it. But the supporting cast is really great. Benjamin Bratt is a major player. Simon Helberg is a player. Adrian Brody shows up a little bit. And then the rest of the cast includes one-offs from people like Ellen Barkin, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ron Perlman, Chloe Sevigny. Nick Nolte has an episode. Judith Light, Tim Blake Nelson, Lil Rel Howery, Tim Meadows. I mean, it's a really wonderful gallery of folks that show up in this show and make it that much better because you're getting great actors involved in these murders every episode. And the murders are clever and interesting. They're not easy to solve, but usually you get to see a little bit of the murder and then we sort of flash back to how she got involved with it every episode. And it's great. I can't wait for season 2. I believe that's coming. But really happy to get this on Blu-ray. So I'll always have it, even if I don't have the Peacock subscription. So next up, we have Nil By Mouth. This is a feature by the great Gary Oldman, and it was his debut feature. He directs it and wrote it. It does not star him, I don't believe, and instead it stars Ray Winstone. And it's about Ray Winstone plays Ray, and his family, his wife Val, and her brother Billy live together in a working class London district. And also in their family is Val and Billy's mother Janet and grandmother Kath. Billy, the son, is a drug addict, and Raymond kicks him out of the house, making him live on his own. And Raymond is generally a rough and even violent person, and that leads to problems in the life of the family. But it's a really blue-collar story, really powerful performances, and very gritty. Just a really well observed and acted piece, and a downbeat but excellent film that I know my partner in crime at Pure Cinema, Elric Kane, is a huge fan of. The cast includes Kathy Burke, Charlie Creed Miles, Leila Morse, Edna Dore, Chrissy Cotterill, John Morrison, Jamie Foreman, Steve Sweeney. A bunch of folks I'm not as aware of outside of Ray Winstone, but Ray Winstone really carries the movie in a powerful, heartbreaking, dramatic performance. It's really something special, and it's nice that it's got a Blu-ray. I believe this is the Blu-ray debut. Sadly, there's no real features except, I think, a trailer. Another one I would have loved to have had a Gary Oldman commentary for. I'd love to hear his thoughts on it. But regardless, it's nice to have this on Blu-ray. It's from 1997, if I didn't mention that. But a really solid film, and one that I think is underseen and underdiscussed to this day. I think it was restored by the BFI, and a really nice restoration for this Blu-ray, so well worth picking up, well worth your time. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.